Colombia's most wanted drug trafficker and the leader of the country's largest criminal gang has been captured. Dario Antonio Usuga, better known as Otoniel, was seized after a joint operation by the Army, Air Force and police. The Ethiopian government has expanded its aerial bombardment of the Tigray region, saying it's hit rebel targets. A spokesperson for the Tigray People's Liberation Front said the missiles landed on buildings which are already destroyed. Ugandan police have described an explosion at a bar and restaurant in the capital, Kampala, as an act of domestic terror. They say 3 men left a device under a table which blew up. 1 person has died. And a vigil taking place in New Mexico to mourn cinematographer Helena Hutchins after she was accidentally shot dead on a US film set.
China's top legislative body has passed a law to strengthen border protection. This comes amid an ongoing standoff with India and other countries over national boundaries. The Standing Committee of the National People's Congress passed the law on Saturday. It stipulates that China will take necessary measures to protect its territorial sovereignty and land border security. The legislation says the country can build infrastructure for transportation, communications, and defense on its side of the border. Under the law, organizations or individuals may not build permanent structures without approval. The legislation allows the use of weapons against anyone illegally crossing the border into China to commit acts of violence. It also prohibits the flying of drones near its borders. But the law does not stipulate exactly which sections of disputed border areas are China's territories. The legislation's approval comes after confrontations between Chinese and Indian forces over the construction of roads and military facilities in disputed areas. A fatal military clash occurred between the two sides in June last year. China's legislative body has also decided to authorize the government to test the introduction of property taxes in some cities. This follows President Xi Jinping's promise to rein in soaring housing prices. Some analysts say a housing bubble that's forming is widening the wealth gap in a country where housing prices have been rising for years. President Xi has vowed to narrow this gap and achieve what he calls common prosperity. The new scheme aims to restore balance to the real estate market and to rehabilitate companies such as the struggling property giant Evergrande Group. Many real estate companies in China rely heavily on borrowing for property development, assuming that prices will only rise. The government will decide on the tax rate and which cities will take part. A similar pilot program is already underway in Shanghai and Chongqing. A nationwide expansion of the scheme will be considered after assessing the results of these initial programs, which will last up to 5 years. Envoys from the U.S. and South Korea met in Seoul over the weekend and called on Pyongyang to cease its provocations and engage in dialogue. U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Song Kim met on Sunday with South Korea's Special Representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs, No Gyu-dok. They discussed the complete denuclearization of the peninsula. Kim said after the meeting that Pyongyang's recent ballistic missile test violates multiple UN Security Council resolutions. He added it poses a threat to the country's neighbors and the international community.
We call on the DPRK to cease these provocations and other destabilizing activities and instead engage in dialogue.
Kim also said the U.S. will work with South Korea toward getting talks restarted with the North. No said he had a serious, in-depth discussion with Kim. He said they exchanged opinions on various things that could be done, such as providing humanitarian aid. North Korea has indicated it intends to develop various weapons systems, including ballistic missiles. That would be in line with its 5-year plan to strengthen its defense capabilities. The North has shown no willingness to engage in dialogue. Now, the coronavirus situation in Japan. Tokyo reported 19 new cases on Sunday, the lowest figure yet this year. Crowds have returned to a street that has been closed off to traffic in Tokyo's Ginza shopping district. Restrictions on operating hours are being eased on eating and drinking establishments in the capital from Monday for the first time in about 11 months. Nightlife establishments in the district are looking forward to the looser curbs. This flower shop says orders are flooding in for bars and restaurants that are reopening. Its sales related to the nightlife entertainment industry fell to virtually zero at one point during the pandemic. Orders started to increase after the state of emergency was lifted earlier this month.
Mic check. Status okay.
This karaoke bar in northern Tokyo is planning to stay open until late at night starting Monday. The Tokyo metropolitan government had asked people to refrain from going to karaoke establishments, but that request ended on Sunday. The store's sales are currently around a quarter of pre-pandemic figures.
I'm not sure whether resuming karaoke will bring customers back. I don't know how many regulars will return. I'm worried.
Officials are calling on businesses that offer karaoke to keep rooms well ventilated and to properly disinfect microphones and other equipment. Singapore says it will make COVID-19 vaccinations virtually mandatory for workplaces from the beginning of next year. About 84% of the population has been fully vaccinated, but cases are surging again after restrictions were relaxed in August. New daily infections have regularly topped 3,000 this month. The government announced the new rule on Saturday, saying it aims to keep workplaces safe. The rule takes effect on January 1st. Unvaccinated people will only be allowed to return to work if they can produce negative tests valid for 24 hours or if they have recovered from the virus in the past 270 days. Singapore has already banned unvaccinated people from entering shopping malls and eating in restaurants. Next, some news from the world of sports. Japanese Olympic swimming champion Hagino Kosuke has announced he is retiring.
I made my best effort. I really did. Amazing. That's how I think about it now. So that's why I have a feeling of contentment and happiness.
Hagino won gold in the 400-meter individual medley at the 2016 Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. After the games, he underwent surgery on his right elbow and seemed to go into a slump. He took nearly 3 months off from competition. At the Tokyo Olympics this past summer, he competed in a number of races, including the 200-meter individual medley, but he couldn't make it to the podium. Hagino told reporters he had decided before the Tokyo Games he would retire.
I had planned to end my competitive career in a more illustrious way. But I was still able to do everything I could and show people who Hagino Kosuke was, including my weaknesses. I must say that as a swimmer, I had a career that was cool and competitive.
As for his future, Hagino says he plans to continue his studies at the postgraduate level. Those were the stories for this hour.